Hi, I'm the Prodigal Fish, and today we're going to talk about the nearly forgotten Battle of Dybbol. Our story begins with a question, the Schleswig-Holstein question to be exact. These were a series of diplomatic issues between the territories of Schleswig and Holstein states. It's kind of confusing, and to help illustrate it, the British Prime Minister Henry John Temple said, "Only three people have really ever understood the question. The original prince who asked it, a German professor who's gone mad thinking about it, and I who have completely forgotten about it." Hopefully by the end of this, I'll help you understand it. So Schleswig was a part of Denmark during the Viking Age, and it sustained non-stop raids from the Norsemen. So the Danish king spent all this time trying to bring it to order. And Holstein was a part of the Holy Roman Empire down south. And in 1460, the Danish king Christian I creates a Treaty of Ribe, which gives him control of both regions. The Holy Roman Empire doesn't really care about what's going on because they're busy handling stuff down south. And in 1806, Napoleon Bonaparte slaps the crap out of them at the Battle of Austerlitz, and they're forced to dissolve. This gives birth to the German Confederation, and these men and women only dream about having a united Germany. And this starts a series of talks, which become protests, which becomes full-scale war. The Danish king claims that both regions are his, and they need to comply, or else there's going to be a war. Holstein could care less, and they just go to war, and this kicks off the First Schleswig War. The Kingdom of Prussia intervenes with their fellow Germans, and it escalates, but ends with a Danish victory. This forces Holstein to suck it up until the same Danish king dies without an acceptable heir. This leads to the Second Schleswig War. Now, sequels are rarely better than the originals, but the Germans here, they hire a better director, invest in better CGI, and they go all out this time. So let's see how this happened. November 18th, 1863, and King Christian IX of Denmark signs the November Constitution, which says that he controls both regions, so if everyone could back off, that would be great. The Germans hate that, and they fire every single one of the Danish senators and replace them with someone more German. Christmas Eve, 1864, and Prussian troops under Frederick VIII, also known as the Pretender, I wonder why, march in and take control of the entire Holstein government without bloodshed. January 1st, and the entire Danish army is camped on the north bank of the Ida River, and the Germans are in the south. The water in between them is frozen and can only be crossed by foot, but since no one wants to actually kick off the war, no one even attempts it. January 16th, and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire decides they want to play too, and together with the Germans, they issue an ultimatum for the November Constitution to be abolished. It's said that the Danish king didn't even bother to read it, and he chooses to war. Now we have 38,000 Danes going up against 38,400 Prussians, 23,000 Austrians, and 20,000 locals when the fighting first began. Battle after battle is being fought in snowstorms below freezing temperatures, and the Danes start being outmaneuvered and have to retreat. Hundreds of their men are freezing to death, and this eventually leads to our Battle of Dybbol. Dybbol is a pretty small town, and only 2,000 people live there now. But back then, there's an ironclad Danish warship called Rolf Krake that's providing gun support for friendly forces. But on the land, it's no such advantage. They barely have any protective shelters for their soldiers to keep them from artillery or the cold. So at 2 a.m., the Prussians move into attack position, and their guns just start leveling the defenses. Most of the exhausted, defenders, they literally have a choice to either run and get blown apart, hunker down, or just put sandbags over them and pray they don't die. And that pretty much kills a whole bunch of them, and anyone who didn't die just takes off running. At 10 a.m., the German infantry begins to move out. A marching band begins to play to inspire already eager and bloodthirsty men. They scream and let out the vicious war cry as they charge across this frozen, barren battlefield with no cover. The Danish defenders, they start waking up, and they're terrified to hear it coming, but they stand up and they start firing without pause. Nothing can be heard but these German warriors coming to end this war and bring about a unified Germany. Even as their fellow soldiers fall, they don't stop charging into this thick gunfire. Things start to change when they get closer, and the enemy's gunfire starts getting more accurate, and they start killing a bunch of Germans. So the guys who are still alive hunker on the ground, and they get in this prolonged firefight where men are dying on both sides. Finally, the Danish turn an artillery gun and face directly the attackers, and they start inflicting heavy casualties. They're screaming, there's death, there's blood everywhere, as these men start pausing to take in what's going on. And then they all at once, they start screaming, and they charge as one with greater zeal than they had before. Now nothing but total victory is going to end this attack, and it takes 13 minutes for the Germans to capture the entire objective. But they trap a whole bunch of Danes in there, and they start massacring them without mercy. This whole time, the armored warship out in the sea is just lighting them up, but it's literally doing nothing to stop them at all. Far away, the Danes who fled earlier last night are watching their brothers be slaughtered, and so a few start stopping people one at a time and start screaming for help. Soon more men realize what's going on, and they start forming up. Then the officers arrive, and they form neat battle lines similar to Civil War, shoulder to shoulder fighting, and now thousands of Danes are ready to move in to stop this massacre. This is the entire 8th Brigade who leads the counterattack. They raise a scream to mass the Germans, and now thousands of Danes push to retake what was lost. There's like an electrical charge in the air as they feel victory is just over the hill. The few Germans who kept chasing after their comrades now fall victim to thick rows of musket fire, and wave after wave of Danish gunfire causes a quick retreat. The once motivated counterattack comes to a stop when they go over a hill and they see nothing but dead bodies. Where's this massive German army that beat their comrades back? The ground begins to shake, and the Danes see their comrades from far away waving their hands furiously. Are they cheering them on or telling them to run? It's too late because the reorganized German forces move out of a thick fog, and they waste no time setting up pretty battle lines and just fire into these tightly packed Danish lines. There's nothing that these men do as dozens start falling. A few seconds go by and hundreds are killed. Anyone who survives is laying flat on the ground to avoid being shot until the ground shakes from another German bayonet charge. The final showdown begins, and thousands of men run into each other, all hoping to bring an end to this. On one side, you have the Danes that are just trying to survive and drive these invaders away. And on the other side, a whole bunch of Germans that, knowing that the end of this battle will probably bring their goal to fruition. And in this horrible melee, it's so god-awful that it would put a World War I veteran to shame. Men are stabbing each other, shooting each other, strangling one another, beating each other with rocks. And it's so thick, and there's so much blood as commanders and friends and brothers start falling. And in the end of it, the Germans finally drive them away on that blood-stained battlefield. And no mercy is shown until eventually they break their enemies' resolves and cause a full retreat. By the end of this battle, 4,789 Danes were either killed, wounded, or captured, compared to the 1,200 on the German side. The only reason this is so detailed is because this is the first battle where the International Red Cross was able to observe and collect a long, detailed account. The battle essentially ended the war, and even though there are several small skirmishes and a naval engagement, the Danish really felt had their morale shattered after this loss. And on October 30th, 1864, a peace treaty was signed that gave both Schleswig and Holstein to Germany. And this would remain so until after World War I, when Denmark would finally be able to reclaim it under the Treaty of Versailles. Every year, both countries meet to commemorate the battle, and on April 18th, military men from both sides wear uniforms to pay respect to the warriors that died. The takeaway from this is that violence is nothing new. Humans have killed each other for millennia, but now we have systems in place to promote diplomacy rather than just rushing to war. Don't resort to violence first because you never know what the outcome could be. You got to know when it's time to act. We forget about events like this because no one teaches us them. But if you look and see that if people take the time and they find a way to coexist, you don't have to have all this unnecessary bloodshed. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. This is the Prodigal Fish, signing off. Bye.